Of all the temples within the Officio Assassinorum, there is one that is sanctioned, but highly heretical, from deals with Mechanicus for illegal technology, to Xenos breeding to create the temple's first and only assassin. What was its final fate? What was the specialization of the temple, and what Xenos genetics were used for it? Friends, let's find out, and welcome to another 40k video, drawing on 7th Retribution by Ben Counter. Within the Assassinorum, each temple has a specialization. The Merora's temple was created to deal with a target, which, while being a single entity, conceptually is spread over a number of individuals, such as a rebel parliament, for example, or cults. The number of potential subtargets was such that technology could not be relied upon, and only unarmed killing would do. The temple's modus operandi was to enter into a target-rich environment, typically a meeting or gathering, and kill every sub-target present as quickly as possible, without recourse to weaponry or fallible technology. Almost a type of mass assassination, rather than the single targets a lot of the other temples take on. An assassin's training could guarantee that the first target would fall. It was the subsequent targets that were the problem. Alerted to the danger, probably armed and with the advantage of numbers, even an assassin would be hard-pressed to kill them all with empty hands. So a Merora's assassin made use of that first victim and turned them into a weapon. The one assassin that was created by the temple is called Legionstrasse. She could use her physiology and break down into its raw biomass, the first victim of an assassination, and transform it instantly into weapon mutations. Now let's stop there. Biomass absorbing and adapting, the Xenos gene mixed in here has to be Tyranids, surely. Legionstrasse was a living weapon fueled by the bodies of the dead, so that with every target she killed, she became stronger. The Officio Assassinorum had bargained for centuries to gain the leverage over certain Adeptus Mechanicus tech heretics, to have the necessary research performed on rare mutant strains and shape-shifting Xenos. Rumours say an STC was traded to the Mechanicus for use of this illegal tech. The Merora's temple itself had started out as a huge forbidden experiment camp, where thousands of subjects were rendered down to create the genetic material required to make the first assassin. So you can imagine how quickly she can kill and adapt a very definite super assassin, but why go to all that effort and only make one? Even a super assassin can't operate in more than one theatre of war, but this one also houses the ability to produce more of her kind. The novel tells us Legionstrasse wore a fatigue suit. She unbuckled its front and pulled it down over her shoulders. There hung in translucent fluid-filled sacks a dozen young. They were roughly like curled embryonic humans in shape, but their spines were disfigured with bony spurs, and distended skulls were home to too many eyes, each faceted like an insect's. Through the cloudy fluid could be seen the suggestions of mandibles and ridges of bone, and the real power here is once they're grown, they can also reproduce. Again, this feels very Tyranid to me. Now let's look at her OP abilities in action. What you need to know before we begin is that Cincella is the head of the Colexus temple. That temple are nulls and targets psychers specifically, and Lysander is a space marine imperial fist, I believe. And by the way, the name of this super duper assassin, just so you know, is Legionstrasse. Lady Cinella's eyes turned black, and a bolt of nothingness shot from her. Focused by the animus speculum, Legionstrasse rose up to slam into Cincella and avoided the attack entirely. Her torso split open into 4 clawed limbs, grabbed Cincella and yanked her up into the air. Arteries pulsed under her skin as they drew up the blood from the fallen, and within her chest Lysander could see 3 great hearts. Cincella's knives darted in and out, shearing off limbs as new ones grew in their place, and grabbed a handful of Legionstrasse's ratty blonde hair and drew her back to ram a knife into her enemy's throat. Blood-red whips lashed around Cincella's wrist and held it firm. For a moment the two were locked together. Face to face, Legionstrasse raised a human-looking hand. It split apart, fingers fanning out, forming a shield that covered one side of her face. Bullets smacked into it and detonated, leaving the hand a smoking ruin. the Vindicate Assassin, and a Vindicate Assassin uses a rifle from a distance. If you're a gamer, you know what type of weapon I'm talking about. A sniper, of course. So we'll go back to where we started a moment ago. The Vindicate had timed his shot perfectly. Any other target would have died. Legionstrasse knew how a Vindicate fought. The moment by moment, Legionstrasse grew, a dizzying mass of pulsing flesh, here with petals like a flower, there with pincers like a predatory insect. Legionstrasse plunged the limb into the ground, then it rippled along the blood-soaked landing pad, exploding beneath Lysander in a spray of glistening red tentacles. They wrapped around Lysander and dragged him back. Lysander tore one arm free and swung the fist of Dawn around him, but the blunt hammer did little against the tentacles. Sergeant Subturon sprinted through the chaos towards Legionstrasse. One of the assassin's clawed limbs reached down for him, but he dropped and rolled underneath it, bringing his blade up as he passed under to slice through it at a joint. Legionstrasse's answer was a blade of bone that speared out from the centre of her torso. From between the pulsing mass of her multiple hearts, it impaled Septuron through the stomach and split the backpack of his armour in two as it exited through it. Legionstrasse lifted him up off the ground. Then the blade withdrew, and Septuron dropped to the ground, by now dead. The thought of Septuron's muscle and bone being absorbed for Legionstrasse's use was what spurred Lysander on. Tentacles snapped at him as he took another few torturous steps towards the assassin. Legionstrasse looked at Cincella now. Legionstrasse forced Cincella towards her chest, and as Cincella gets closer to the assassin, this super assassin, she sees Legionstrasse's organs throbbed inside an open torso. Cincella twisted one arm free. A knife punched into one of Legionstrasse's hearts. Then the teeth slid from the edges of her open ribcage, forming a huge set of vertically hinged jaws that closed down on Lady Cincella. Cincella's legs kicked as the teeth gouged into her waist. She was strong and she lived a few seconds longer than anyone had a right to, bracing her arms against the side of the maul to hold it wide. Bones snapped and her arms gave way, and the jaws clamped shut on this assassin head. Lady Cincella's lower half flopped to the blood-soaked ground. Still kicking, Legionstrasse turned now to Lysander, and new limbs, great bladed arms like those of a huge fleshy mantis, grew from her shoulders. The sniper takes out her escape craft, and Legionstrasse realizes she is stranded, so she breaks and runs. Lysander goes after her, and she escapes with her life intact. Later in the story, she was finally ended when facing Lysander, again leading a squad of Terminators and an Eversor assassin who was a berserker. Legionstrasse was pinned to the Eversor as he died and exploded. Then Lysander removed her head and then smashed her body with a thunderhammer into porridge. So now, friends, I turn things over to you. What do you think to the heretical temple? Do you think Legionstrasse would have been a benefit to the Imperium, or is she too overpowered to exist within the 40k verse? And just to say, the body changing, all that morphing, things opening, it reminded me of the film The Thing with Kurt Russell in it. Check that out if you've not. It's a great body horror movie and I really like that sort of stuff. Anyway, as I ended before, comment down below.